Hi, I'm Phil. This is Sonny. This is Ellie. Welcome to Rebel Engineering. Alright, mate. In today's video, I'm doing a job that I hate, and that is preparing skirting boards and door frames for paint. If you've got old, big skirting boards like this and you want to keep them, probably not a good idea to just paint straight over the top if they've already got paint on, because then dripped, really thick paint, you'll lose a lot of the detail and it won't look very good. So, best way to do it is to burn the paint off. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You put a mask on because it gets off pretty bad fumes. In order to remove all the paint, we need a heat gun and a series of scrapers. So I've got a big one for the flat areas, a slightly smaller one for getting some of the more stubborn bits, and then this detail scraper which has got a few different ends on it for all the nooks and crannies and awkward bits. So you see it's got a curved edge, it's got a couple of points, it's got a little angle. It's going to let us get into all of the areas that we can't get into with the two big ones. So, let me show you how to remove all this paint. Heat gun plugged in, mask is on. Now, I already know what temperature to set my heat gun to in order to burn paint off, because I've done it with this heat gun before. You might need to try different temperatures and see which gives you the best results. But what you're going to do is, you're going to turn your heat gun on, you're going to just hold it roughly 5 centimeters away from the skirting board, and you're going to just move it along slightly, and you want to get it to the point where the paint's just about bubbling. You don't want to go too far, otherwise it'll burn, it'll become really sticky. Move it backwards and forwards just to even the heat out a little bit. Then when it's still bubbling, get your scraper, just scrape along, it'll come off. Don't try to gouge, because you'll end up damaging the skirting board underneath. Might have to pick at it a little bit. Do it while it's still warm, don't let it go cold. Corners are always really awkward, but... And if it all comes off as easy as that, I'll be happy, but chances are we're going to run across a couple of more difficult areas as we go around. So, just going to do that all the way around the whole room until it's all been taken off. paint's been burned off. All of the skirting boards, all of the door frames. Be careful when you're doing door frames because you've got lots of little nooks and crannies, and if your door frames are anything like mine, there'll be patches where there's been different latches put in, different hinges put in, and someone's filled them with filler. When you're trying to get the paint off there, be careful. You don't want to gouge all that out. Try and leave some of it in. For these ones I'm going to have to comb over them and sand them back down anyway, but just try to be a bit careful around those areas. Now that all the paint's off though, we need to sand. Alright, the reason that we're sanding now is to get rid of any little bits that are left over, any bits where the wood's slightly chipped or not quite smooth. I use a few different tools when I'm doing this. I use an electric detail sander or mouse sander, which is really good for getting the nooks and crannies and getting right down to where it meets the floorboards. You could use a belt sander. I just prefer the precision that you get with the detail sander. I'm also going to use a sanding block with some sandpaper attached to it. I'll have to use some just regular sandpaper as well, just like this, probably fold it over to get into really small bits, and then some really fine sanding foam or sanding sponges, just to flatten it off right at the very end. So it's going to take a long time. Alright, that sanding is taking ages, so I'm going to go to B&Q, get some stuff to see if I can speed up the process and get all the other bits that I need while I'm there. So, trip to B&Q now. So as well as those bits that I got from B&Q, I also got some sanding mops online, look kind of like that. Took them about a week to arrive, so it's now a week later, and they're terrible. I've managed to get one of them to work, but I had to totally remake it basically. So I took it all apart and I've put a new bolt in to get it to work. It looks like that. It works okay, but I've just done this door frame using a combination of that, the mouse sander and normal sandpaper. It's taken a while, but it was a little bit quicker than last time. You see it's nice and smooth now. There's still some dark spots, but that'll come out when I put the paint on. You shouldn't be able to see it as long as it gets coat primer, coat undercoat, and then top coat. It should be okay. You can see there's a few places as well that I'm going to need to fill because they're cracked, being damaged. But I'll first have to sand all the others down. So this is still really rough. All the skirting boards are still really rough. So it's going to be a long day. Okay, done all the door frames, but there is nothing left of either of those abrasive pad things. This is it. They've all got stuck together with all the stuff, leftover paint and varnish and stuff, but they're just too small. They're not doing anything anymore. So I've made my own. I had these in the garage from when I was doing some work on the car. So I've just done the same thing, put a big bolt through them. I managed to salvage a couple of ones off the ones I bought. But we'll see how these work. I could have made them a bit smaller, but I actually think having them stick out a little bit might make it a bit easier. It might get into the really tight areas around these moulded bits on the skirting board. So I'll have a go, see how it goes. Glasses and goggles on though, so I don't get dust in my eyes or my lungs. Let's That's actually working quite well. So I'm just going to use it for the moulded areas, and then I'll just have to do the bottom with the mouse sander. Well, that kind of worked. It's ripped the little sanding things that I made to shreds, but been around pretty much all of the skirting boards, cleaned off the top moulding bit. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was. Make it a bit easier to sand it now, and then there's just the flat bit at the bottom which I'll get with the mouse sander. So, getting there. Whew. Finally, all the skirting boards and the door frames have been sanded down, nice and smooth now. Got rid of pretty much all of the little black bits that were left over from the paint. So still not quite ready to paint them yet because there are gaps in a few places, mostly behind where the radiator is. It's pretty common when you've had a radiator in, because it heats up, expands, cools down, contracts. You tend to get big cracks along here behind where the radiator's been. But as well as that, there's also, someone's actually already sorted this bit, but over here, you see there's a gap under the skirting board. Because of that gap, you get cold air coming in from under the house. So I need to fill all of them in, and then we'll be ready to paint. Now that all the skirting boards are nice and smooth, sanded, I've gone around, vacuumed up all of the dust that was in the cracks around the top and the bottom. And now I'm going to fill them in. So I've got some expanding foam. You can get it in tins that come with a tube attached, or you can use ones like this, which are a bit more heavy duty. You have to buy a special gun for them. A bit more accurate, get a bit more precision, because you can have a little thin end on there so you can get it right in and squirt out. Because it's quite dry, I'm going to use this just to moisten it, because you should have a moist surface for the expanding foam. So I'm just going to spray this all the way along this crack. It's quite a big crack, it goes quite far along. Get the foam on. Now, you don't want to spray too much. It feels like there's not much there, but remember that this is expanding foam. It's going to expand quite a bit. So just spray a little bit in. Try and get your nozzle as far in as you can so you're filling the whole thing, not just the top. You see it's already coming out because I've put a bit too much in there. If you can't quite get the nozzle in, you can sometimes get away way too much. You can sometimes get away with just squeezing it in somewhere and then running it along, but it's a bit difficult when the gap's not that big. So just do your best. Remember, the only reason that we're using it is to fill the really big gaps. The little ones we can get a bit of decorator's cork in later on. You just don't want to be using decorator's cork on really big areas, because otherwise you just end up wasting a whole tube of cork just squirting into a massive void. So you can see some of these areas are taking quite a bit more. I mean, I'm squirting quite a lot here, there's nothing coming out. You don't necessarily want it to come out, that just means more cleanup later on. So try and control it as best you can. You'll sort of find your way as you go, find what works best, which I'm starting to find here. I've forgotten to put my gloves on though. I've already got it on my hands. Pretty much all of them come with gloves, so do make sure you put them on because it's a bit of an irritant and it's really sticky and hard to get off your hands. So wear the gloves that come with it. Don't just wear any old gloves, because depending on what kind of foam you've got, depends on what kind of gloves you need to use. So polyurethane reacts with certain types of gloves, so make sure you've got the right gloves for the job. The ones that come with it are always going to be right, they're just not really high quality. So tend to squirt it in at a bit of an angle. You can get all types of different colours for wood filler, but I tend to use the natural one when I'm going to be painting skirting boards, because if you use the white one you might end up with a patch that's slightly whiter than the rest. So I tend to go with a natural wood colour, and then when you cover it over with your paint, it should be the same, it should take the colour in the same way as the rest of your skirting boards. Depending on what I'm trying to fill, I use different techniques. So for here, where there used to be a plug and there's a big hole that I've had to fill in with the insulating foam, I'll put quite a big blob in that fills up any big gaps. I need to move this around a bit, it's been sat for a while. If you've had your filler for a while and it's been sat around, just give it a move around. I don't know if you can hear it's sort of separated a little bit, some of the moisture's come out. So move it around a bit, make sure it's all combined properly. It should start sounding a little bit less liquidy, feel a bit more firm. Okay, so just put a little bit of that on there. You can use your fingers if you need to, if it doesn't stick. Just make sure that the skirting board's clean and dry, because otherwise it won't adhere very well. And because this is a nice flat bit, I'm just going to use my scraper and just wash it over. Now, with wood filler, you don't want to do too big of a layer. So try and lay it down like a little bit at a time. Just do a sort of a thin layer to start off with, and if it's still there, you can always come back and do another one. You don't want to put too much on at once, because then it'll dry on the top but it'll stay wet inside for a really long time, and it'll end up sinking back in and shrinking down, and it won't look good. So small amounts, just scraping it over to fill in any gaps. It's probably the worst bit of the whole room, is this area here. Once this bit's done, there's probably not going to be many more to do. Just keep trying to push it as far into any little holes as you can. Like I said, you can use your fingers. I tend to do that more if it's not on a flat surface, like if it was on the moulding up here. But if you want to use your fingers, if you feel like you can get it into an area a bit better with your fingers, then by all means do that. Right, I'm going to leave it at that for now, because there were some quite large areas there, some quite deep cracks. So if I don't put any more on for now, and I'll come back a little bit later on, I'll put an additional layer on. That should be that bit sorted. Just go around and do the rest of the room now. One thing that's quite common is that door frames will be quite bad. So you can see here, there's a big chunk missing from here and from here. I think the reason that is because when they get pinned into the wall, a nail just gets driven into them to drive them into the wall, if they're as old as these ones, rather than being screwed into place. I think. And then the wood just splits around it, and it tends to get worse because door frames are load bearing. The house pretty much sits on top of them, So as the house settles, it settles on top of there, pushes down, opens that split out, and you get bits of wood splintering off. So you'll probably find, if you are doing something similar, that corners of door frames are going to be the worst areas, and something like this where you've got such a big chunk missing, you're probably going to have to build it up in a few layers. So put a layer on first, not too thick, let it dry, come back, put another layer on, try and build it up so it's even further out than the actual door frame, and then sand it back down so it's flat, and try and blend it in as best you can. It's never going to look perfect, but without taking the whole door frame out, there's not really much else you can do, so I'm going to do that now. First layer done, just use my fingers to try and force it into the cracks and holes as far as I could. Put a light coat on to start off with, and then we'll come back when it's dried, put another layer on, sand it down. I think I'll probably have to put 3 on because of this top bit here. If I put too much on there, it's just going to sink and I'm going to end up with a little dip anyway, so I think I'm probably going to have to do 3 layers there, but this bit's not too bad, it's not far off now. Layer 2 done, starting to build up now. Just a tiny little bit at the top where there was that big chunk missing. All of this is pretty much ready now. Should get it on the next bit, and then we can sand it down and get it matched up. So here it is after having 3 layers and being sanded down a bit. You can see here I've just had to put a little bit more on as like a 4th layer at the top, but I think that's as good as I'm going to get it really. So just need to sand it down and get it all matched. And getting so close to being ready to paint this now. Only thing left to do is to fill in around here where we put the insulating foam, around the top where there might be a couple of little cracks. So we're going to use some decorator's cork and a sealant gun or a caulking gun, and seal up all the way around there. That'll prevent any extra air coming through, any dust or anything coming up where there's gaps in the insulation, and it'll give us a nice edge along here between the wall and the skirting board. So I'm going to do that now. Alright, so you're going to get your decorator's cork, and you need to cut the top off. I've already cut the top off this one because I already used half the tube. And then get your gun. There's a little lock on the back. Push that lock in, and it'll let you move that backwards and forwards. Pull it all the way back, and then you can put the nozzle of your cork through there, and the hollow end there. Squeeze the trigger. Normally it won't take this long, it's just because, like I say, I've already used half this tube. And then you'll start to feel resistance when it starts pushing down, and then it should start coming out of the end. Mine might not, because I think it's dried up a little bit inside. I think I'm going to have to poke something in there to get it going. Yeah, dried up, be right back. Okay. So you can see I'm squeezing the trigger now, it's starting to come out. Yeah. What we're going to do is just put that nozzle, start over here, put that nozzle on there, just get it going, just get a little flow, slowly move it along. Now you want to try and get it as even as you can, but it's just inevitable that you're a bit jerky as you're going and you get caught on things, so it doesn't come out quite perfect. Just keep going with it, go all the way along. If you need to put more on, you can. But remember that this is mostly sealed now with the insulating foam. All that this is really doing is filling in any tiny gaps and just making it look a bit nicer really. Now you can get a special tool, it's like a little plastic squeegee thing that you can use to run along there, but I tend to just use my finger and just go along, push it all in, try not to go too far up the skirting board like I just did there, and just run it along, just to push it right in there, smooth it all out, get it nice and even. Just try not to get too much on the skirting board, you're trying to just get the edge, yeah? And then you can always clean up that skirting board with just a wet cloth. Yeah, just need to do that all the way around the room and do the top as well. Right now I am in the process of editing this video, and it's only now that I'm editing it that I'm realising how long the video is. It's looking like it's going to be about 30 minutes long, so if you've watched it all and you're up to this point, thank you for staying tuned and for watching it. I hope you enjoyed it, and next time the video will be a little bit different, a little bit more exciting. It's not just going to be me walking around on my hands and knees sanding down skirting boards for half an hour. If you can hear a noise in the background, I'm sorry, that's 3D printer. I'm keeping an eye on that while I do some editing. But yes, just keep an eye out on social media, and hopefully I'll have a new video soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.